Hi, I'm Susan of Susan Stanley Stitch in Time, and welcome to my channel. This is episode number 66. I'm so pleased you're here with me. We explore lots of interesting topics on this channel, mostly textile related. But thank you for joining me. If you're coming back, thank you, and if you're new, welcome. So glad you're here. This episode today, we'll take a look at some new releases that I have. We're going to look at one of the whips, or a couple of whips that I've really been focusing on. I'm going to fill you in on a Black Friday offering that I'm going to be presenting in a few weeks. So you'll want to hear about that if you're interested. And we'll take a deep dive into the beautiful quilt that I was gifted by Rebecca Boardmen. We're going to have its unveiling, and I'm going to crawl around and show you up close and personal some of the fabrics, talk to you about dating of the fabrics and what I know from what I see, and I think it'll be really fun. So I'm so glad you're here. All right, so I have a couple of releases that I would love to make you aware of. Of course, if you have been following me, you already know about Clara, 1876, and she is now available at Attic Needleworks as a kit. You can contact them, and I will put their information below. But Clara has been now been released by the Attic. So you can stitch her up for your patriotic display. She's a great pincushion. Anyway, I'm so thrilled at the response, and I'm so happy to see everyone's progress on Clara and their stitching of her. And I'm so happy to be able to offer her through the Attic to you. And so because she was so sought after, and I had so many requests for something else that went along with her, or was part of the next step, I guess, I just thought, well, I just have to do this because it was kind of burning a hole in my mind. And so I created Victoria. And Victoria is from 1883, and there's a little bit of story on the inside cover. It tells you a little bit about Victoria. I had so much fun researching her outfit, making sure it was time period appropriate. It's a whole nother textile rabbit hole I get to go down as I create her clothing. But her outfit and her little capelet and her little bonnet, her little hat, cap covering. I'm sure Catherine Adrian can tell us a lot more about this. Catherine Adrian of Stitching in Costume. If you don't follow her and watch her, you should. Is my one of my go-to people as far as historic costuming goes. But I'm starting to build a library along those lines as well. It's amazing when you start down one path, what the other paths that it leads you to. So Victoria was unveiled this weekend at the Attic for their Autumn of Abundance event, and there are kits available at the Attic, and then I will be having I will have a limited number of kits on my website that will be part of the Black Friday offering. So I will talk more about that later in the episode, but if you want to be made aware of the Black Friday offerings, please sign up for my newsletter. So here's little Victoria. I don't have the actual objects, the actual girls, the actual stitching is at the shop in Phoenix. If you are near, please go visit and say hi. And Andrea Ustelo, Stitch Witch 1, has almost completed her over 1. She stitched this over 1 on, I believe it was 30 count. She also stitched the model. And it's there at the Attic for you to see. And it looks like, I think Carolyn said it looks like a painting. It's so dense. The silk is so rich and vibrant. It's rich and vibrant anyway, and there's something about seeing the clothing stitched in silk and you don't, I love silk, and I understand that. I just think it looks so beautiful. So anyway, I'm super, super excited. So hope you'll grab your copy from the attic, or I'll have kits available at the Black Friday offering. And then I did something I thought, why not? I was very inspired by this plant, which comes out at this time of year. It's a wintergreen plant. These berries are what teaberry and wintergreen flavoring is made from. And you may remember teaberry gum. I don't know if you're of that generation, but and I just think it's beautiful, and I like to plant these on my walkway coming up to this time of year because they can handle this cold weather where I live. And I thought, I was inspired by this and then some fabric that I had to do an alternate version to Pharaby's quilt. And Pharaby was the little girl. Pharaby is from Boyette, Kentucky, and she's the little girl that we explored last year in my First Stitches series, who took us into a new skill in patchwork and stitching, and that was the creation of half square triangles. And so her quilt was stitched using the rich browns and the chocolate colors from the 19th century. I did the red and the green. The red represented the hearth and the home, and the green is the promise of spring. And it kind of, doesn't kind of coordinates with this, right? Well, I had another fabric that I thought, I could do another version that is a teaberry version. And so I have created the same quilt. And let me see if I can get this because it's really blowing out. Let's see. And so it's these sweet little minty greens and pinks. Let's see if I hold it like this. That's better. Hold it like that. So if you missed out on the chocolate version and you want to take that next step in the First Stitches series and learn how to do these half square triangles and that element of patchwork, that is the next step, in my opinion, of what you would learn as a young child in the 19th century, then you might want to grab a teaberry kit, and this will be available on my website for the Black Friday offering. But I just thought, these berries in this fabric, and this is another thing about this version, has fussy cutting of these fabrics right here. And I just thought it was sweet. Now, this doesn't have to be necessarily for Christmas or the holidays. I think this could be spring. This is not, this is an adaptation and kind of a homage to historic stitching. These are historic colors. This is an historic palette. This is more along the lines of what would approximate something from the 1800s. This is not. It's just fun. It does use some, of course, fabrics from the 1800s, and there were things done with these lighter shades for sure. But I just couldn't pass it up. When I saw this fabric, I thought, oh, it's so perfect. So teaberry for Pharaby, based on my inspiration from the wintergreen plant, will also be available on Black Friday, on my Black Friday offering. So that's those are some of the new releases, and I'd love to know what you think. I'm so curious. What do you think? Are you more drawn to the more pastel palette, or does the Teaberry, or does this rich chocolate kind of draw you in? I mean, there's kind of a season for each one, isn't there? I think this one is delightful, like as at the base of the plant, you know, on the table with the plant set on top. But I can also see this one used in that way as well. And it kind of maybe depends on how you decorate or the palette that pleases you. So let me know what you think. People have strong feelings about colors, you know, maybe these colors aren't for you either, you know, or maybe these colors aren't for you. I don't know. I just like to know. I'm just curious. So, all right, let's now move on to some of the whips that I've been working on. So my whips for this month include a couple of older projects that I've had, and I've been inspired to get them back out and work on them for a few reasons. The first one, of course, I got out because this month of November is Black Sampler November, and that was a stitching challenge or prompt started by Jacob of Modern Folk Embroidery. And this sampler I'm about to show you is using only black thread, but it's also a Quaker sampler. And if you were with me last month, you'll know that my First Stitches project for next year, for 2026, is about an American Quaker girl, and I'll tell you more about that in a minute because I don't want to get into it too early. So I thought, you know, this is a great opportunity to explore some of my Quaker samplers that I've started. Now, neither one of these is an American Quaker sampler, but it's a Quaker sampler nonetheless, and the American Quakers, their samplers, and from what I'm learning about them, of course things evolve and change as people move and explore other regions of the world. I decided I needed to get out my Anne Grimshaw and work on her. And this is a gorgeous chart, and many people have finished it. It's just stunning. I will finish it. But it has all the classic things that you think of when you think of a Quaker, well, at least when I thought of a Quaker sampler. Now I'm learning a lot more. It has classic alphabets, types and shapes, and of course those hexagon motifs that are so recognizable. So this is what I've done so far. I'm using Russian Teacake and Au Ver A Soie, Soie d'Alger Noir. I love the strong contrast. I wanted the strong contrast. And I know this is going to be gorgeous when it's done. And there is something very soothing. And Russian Teacake is a 37 count legacy linen. There's something very soothing about these motifs because they are mathematical, they're balanced. Typically, it's not typically for me a pattern that I can memorize as I'm stitching, but it makes sense. It's predictable in many ways, and that can also be a problem because you can assume that the next stitch is going to be what is predictable in your mind, and it's not. Anyway, so I'm going to give a lot of attention to this year. I have other whips in my rotation that are really special to me, two in particular that I really would love to give more attention to as well. But this one is going to be added in along with another Quaker project. And this project is based on Modern Folk Embroidery's Forget-Me-Not sampler. And this is Katie Strachan's adaptation of that sampler to be used and cover a box. So this is the color palette that I had chosen, and this is Cloudburst, Legacy Linen Cloudburst, and ooh, Let me see if I know what color blue. Anyway, this is going to be a box that contains certain family heirloom items. And I decided to use all Scarlett below this blue. And it's not as high contrast as the Anne Grimshaw, but I love it. And this piece of linen is cut according to her directions to fit on I believe this goes on the top of the box. Now, I haven't seen a ton of finishes of this project, and I thought, this is just this is special. I really need to work on this and give it attention. All the tutorials are available on her YouTube channel, and they're free. And all you have to do is purchase the supplies to stitch this. She gives you all the directions on how to move the motifs into the proper position to make them fit onto the box. And of course, the box has to be measured, because none of these things are ever exactly the same. And I suppose you could adapt this concept and all the instructions of how to attach this stitching to a box to be used on any kind of a box. But she'd probably be the person to ask about that. And this is using Goblins and a number 10 beading needle. So this was my first experience with Goblins. I have since gone on to stitch some other things with Goblins. I really like it. It's a different tactile experience from Soie d'Alger. Soie d'Alger opens up after you stitch it. It kind of fills in the space. This stays put, in my opinion. Does not open up. It's I believe it's highly twisted. Feels like it to me. Anyway, I am not a thread expert, but I know where to find out all the answers. I'll tell you that. So anyway, those are the two cross-stitch projects that I gave a little time to and have re-pulled out, and then I'll show you a quilt project that I had shown you a little bit before, but I'll give you a little more on. Okay. So the next thing I'd like to share with you that I've been working on, I've shared a little bit of my progress. I don't get a ton of time to do stuff on it, but I'm building a quilt based on I'm trying to build something that is meaningful to me to honor the 250th anniversary of the signing of the Declaration of Independence. I love history. I'm always, I'm so attracted to why people did things in the past, and so many of the stitchers from the past stitched commemorative pieces in honor of events, and we kind of all do that, don't we? I mean, a birth of a new baby, or a wedding, or some special event, a birthday, just celebrating a friendship. So I thought, this is significant. I won't be here for the next big events that happen in the world, and I thought it's worth commemorating, even if it's just for me. And I wanted to challenge myself. So I do kind of miss applique. So I started doing a lot of research into some of the early motifs that were meaningful at the founding of the country, and of course, there are classic images that we all would probably recognize and associate with America. And so I started building my information book that kind of gave me ideas for inspiration. And then I happened upon some Philadelphia samplers. And the Philadelphia samplers were very, this is a picture from a book, so it's not very good. But they typically had a house and an eagle on top, and then some grass, just a classic, sampler with a lot of grass. And, but there was an eagle, because Philadelphia is kind of known for the eagle images. And so I started looking at those and studying those and pulling some ideas from those to create what I wanted to develop into applique. And here's another one. And so as I did that, I thought, you know, I think what would be meaningful to me is to have Mount Vernon and the Potomac River and an eagle and some of the motifs from the founding of the country to commemorate this event. And I, you know, as you can see, there are papers hanging out and all kinds of ideas and pieces of information for inspiration. So what I have so far, and I think I showed you the hills last time. So I'm still appliquing the eagle on, and the shield is partially appliqued. But I have the beginnings of the house. Now this is an interpretation because Mount Vernon is not exactly shaped like this. It's much bigger, and obviously there's not a 20 million foot eagle sitting on the roof. So I kind of pulled the ideas from the samplers to use. It needs some more windows. Of course, I've got ideas for down on the grass in the front. I've got, let me hold it a little closer. So the really fun part is picking the fabrics, and the eagle is out of a chintz, and it was actually gifted to me by a viewer. A lovely viewer sent me a packet of lately arrived from London fabrics that are perfect for this time period. And so I started creating and drawing, and this is what I have so far. And Mount Vernon is made out of, I believe it's limestone. And so I wanted it to have this yellowy, creamy cast instead of being pure white. There's a whole bunch of interesting information on the architecture of Mount Vernon and the way the walls, the facade was painted to look like brick, I believe, and the circular driveway. I mean, there's just so much, and the detail and what I include in this is kind of evolving, but this is what I have so far. So I want to show you a little bit of that progress as I continue to work on this year. And will it just stay this? I'm thinking this will end up being a medallion quilt, and I have ideas for what will come next, and it might just be one type of thing. I don't know if I'm going to go around and round and round, but anyway, that's where I am on the Eagle Medallion quilt. So let me know what you think. Let me know what motifs, like what would be significant, what do you feel would be significant and important to include in this? Of course, the eagle is going to have a banner in his mouth. And if you are a quilter and you're curious about what method I'm using, at least right now on the shield, I've got back basting. I've made a slip for other pieces, which is where you work it in hand, get it all prepared, and then attach it. Several techniques have been used to construct this so far. But yeah, let me know, what do you think, what do you see, and especially if you are more of a sampler stitcher and are familiar with these Philadelphia samplers, what elements would you think would be important to include? So anyway, I look forward to hearing from you. I also want to mention a little bit about the quilt behind me. I will do a panoramic close-up that I'll insert. But this quilt behind me, I wanted to share because I had, for those of you who attended summer school, and who followed, or if you followed the information that was going on there, I talked a lot about the centennial celebration, how Americans celebrated that event in world history or American history. And this quilt is a reinterpretation. It's trying to be as close to a reproduction as possible. And what I mean by that is making matching the fabrics as close to the original as possible. And this quilt it's owned by the owners of the Gap, Levi Strauss. And so it's a bear paw variation, and it's an 1876 quilt, and the block is called World's Fair. So it's very likely this quilt was originally created for the Centennial Celebration World's Fair held in Philadelphia. This was part of a block exchange that I was involved with when I lived in Texas, and it was wonderful. Everyone in the group was very well versed in historic quilts, and we all tried to stay as true to the original as possible. It was fun. It was fun hunting down the fabrics. It was fun swapping the blocks. Block swaps are really fun, but it's hard because everyone has you have to really lay out the ground rules, and everyone has to have a similar skill base. You know, there's so many things involved. And then I went on to teach this at a class when I moved to Washington, and it was a lot of fun. And when I did that, I reduced the block and made my own little lap kind of child-size quilt. And so the original quilt used a poison green for this, but I used a denim because in honor of the Levi Strauss ownership of the quilt. And anyway, it is, if you're kind of jarred by the colors and the activity going on, that is very intentional, and that it was very much what was happening in 1876. Crazy quilts were popular. There was a lot of excess going on, a lot of pattern and shape and activity, and your eye was being moved an awful lot around when you looked at something. So I also thought that this denim blue kind of calmed the little bit intense activity that's going on in each of the blocks. It was a lot of fun. It was, an interesting study in fabric and an interesting study in combinations that were intentionally a little bit over the top, instead of just sticking with the very traditional calm colors. And it actually is one of my family's favorite quilts, I think, just because it is so visual. So I thought you might enjoy seeing that as we move into this next year, where there's a lot of historic significance. I thought this was important to share. So, and now I'd like to tell you a little bit about Black Friday and what I'm proposing. I want you to make sure, if you're interested in anything that I'm going to offer on Black Friday, that you are signed up for my newsletter, because my newsletter will drop either Thursday night or Friday morning. I haven't quite decided that yet, but you will have plenty of time to know before everything goes live on the website. There will be restocking of items that people have been waiting for. There will be new items and new combinations of items, and then there will be a sale item that I'm really excited to share with you. So please sign up for my newsletter and just watch for that. I know it's a busy weekend, and I intend to make things available to everybody. My offering of Victoria will be also happening at that time. So if you're interested in stitching her, you'll want to make sure you've got your notifications going, or that you're signed up for the newsletter. If you have any questions or any trouble accessing any of that information, please let me know. I always leave all my contact information down in the drop-down box. I think one of the things that strikes me about this quilt is the intense color. And then as you go in and look a little more closely at the fabrics, you can see there's stripes and plaids and paisleys, geometrics, and just a whole lot going on. The half arc is applique, and if you step back from it and take a hard look, there's a whole lot of brown. But initially, boy, oh boy, I think I see that wild chrome pink and chrome yellow that was so popular in the 1870s. It's kind of eye-popping. Let me turn this a little bit like that and come out so we can get a better shot. That's going to be hard to get the whole thing in. Let me step back here. Of course, there's the chair, but that gives you a better overall of the entire quilt. And so for closing today, I would love you to join me as I open up the lovely quilt gifted to me by Rebecca Boardman, a very generous viewer who has shared this treasure with me so I can share it with you. And we're going to just look at it together, talk about the fabrics, talk about the historic significance, get some ideas of possible dates. There's more. I could spend hours and hours and hours on this, but I promise I won't talk that long. And as I learn new things, I will definitely share them. But if you're interested in that kind of content, please stick around to learn more about that. And if that's content that you're interested in, like analyzing an antique textile quilt, sampler, coverlet, something where we're kind of looking at dyes and stability of dyes and actual fibers and things like that, let me know. I enjoy it, and if other people are interested, I'd love to share more of that with you. So, all right. And if you're not joining me, and next time I will be back with something fun for the holidays. I hope that you'll all enjoy. And until then, make time for lots of stitching. Have a wonderful time of Thanksgiving with your family and friends, and stay warm and cozy. And all right, here it is. This is the inside of the quilt that I was recently gifted from Rebecca Boardman, and this is something she had hanging in her home and wanted to pass it on to someone who would appreciate it, and I'm so grateful that it was me. The center of this quilt is just full of this amazing red and indigo, and I've talked a lot about red. Some of these are earlier reds, but because there are some later reds, I don't think this quilt is super early. So you have to date the quilt by the oldest fabric that you find. The indigos are incredibly stable. They don't look like they've changed color at all. This is a really interesting print. Looks like an earlier turkey red. And so you can see this is made with, the center is made with bars, rectangular shapes. And this is a medallion quilt, just like we're doing with Corliss. It's got some of this lighter indigo. There's a little bit of damage. It looks like a wool batting. It's batted with wool or stuffed with wool. Some of that's coming out. I might repair that. There's some chintz. And then these large flying geese blocks. These look like 4 patches that are made with bars. And then the outer is another set of half square triangles and bars, rectangular bars. So there are a number of lovely early fabrics, and there's some of that pink that we just saw in the 1870 World's Fair quilt blocks. It's not used in excess, so it just kind of pops and sprinkles around. There are hourglass blocks over here that you don't see on the other side, which is interesting. So the hourglass blocks are on the top and the side and the bottom, but they're not on the opposite side. Interesting. Look at this gorgeous etched. It almost looks like an ink drawing, but it's not. That's the quality of printing that was available. It's just gorgeous. Look at these indigos. Paisley prints. I'm thinking this is likely, it's later in the century, probably the last quarter of the century of the 1800s. Some of these fabrics I've never seen before. This is a mourning print. This would have been made into a gown for mourning. One of the stages of mourning. There were different stages of mourning. I love this. Beautiful. There's some of these gorgeous tan camel colors. Some more mourning prints. The Greek key, which we see on samplers a ton, motif. These indigos really intrigue me though. Their color is just so vibrant and the printing is amazing. That cheddar. A lot of conversation prints. Conversation prints were typically used on shirts and clothing items. They had little graphics on them like this horseshoe, the circle, the tennis racket, the anchor. I'll give you another overall view. Ooh, look at that one. Beautiful. So what's fun is to have studied this. And you can look here and see that this side's wider and it has the hourglass blocks and this side does not. Very interesting. It could be nicely hung lengthwise. Thank you so much for joining me. If you have any questions or comments about this quilt, I would love to hear from you. We can explore it some more in depth. In the future, and if you would like to do this again with another old textile, let me know.